Alright, so I'm not going to talk about turning at all. I'm not going to talk about how to hold the wood in here, even though the tenon on my piece, these jaws are just a hair larger than my jaws at home. So you guys, don't fall asleep while I wake up. But the first thing I'm going to do is, as always, I want to talk about safety. I always start with safety. No jewelry, no watches, no long hair. If you got long hair, it needs to come back. There was a young lady, member of AEW 2 months ago that died. 3 months ago. Hair got wrapped up. Not a good thing. So, first and foremost is eye protection. Now, Gene left, but Gene can tell you what can happen with a very simple little piece doing simple little chores after a lot of plastic surgery and a lot of reconstruction of bones in his eye socket. He was wearing a plain face shield.
I was going to say, he was wearing something.
He was wearing a face shield, and it did that rather than killing him, right? He was ugly to start with. It just looks worse. I thought that the other guy would help him some, but he didn't. So, I'm going to use these glasses tonight because I don't have my battery for my monster helmet, my aliens helmet. This is what I normally, when I'm sanding a lot, I'll wear this. And this is 3M professional grade industry. It comes down and seals, and it has a little chin shield under here, and it draws air up from the back through an intake fan, filters it right here, blows it over the top of your head, over your face, down, and then comes out around here. So it's filtering from behind you where you have the least amount of dust to start with. These things are worth their weight in gold. Of course, these cost like gold, but Trend micro something has one out here on the shelf. I did some research for a friend of mine. It's every bit as good for you as this one, just not quite as heavy duty. But I would highly recommend one of these type powered breathing apparatus if you're going to do much sanding. And I don't know any of you that is good enough to turn without sanding. So I'm pretty close, but not there. Okay? At the very least, that's the bottom of the rung. But don't get the solid kind. Get the ones with a little air valve in it. Because you get the solid ones and you're turning in the winter and you're breathing, it'll fog up your safety glasses, it'll fog up your face shield. So get the kind with a little micro valve in it, and preferably with some carbon filtration to it.
And they need to say 95 or whatever was it, N95?
Yeah, this is N95 NIOSH. It's the safety place for filtration. These are N95s. You can get these at Home Depot or wherever. So at the very least, one of those kinds of breathing protection systems. You need a good dust collector. If you don't have one, you need to get one. At the very least, you take a fan, you blow the fan out your shop door, your garage door, through the window. Something needs to be right here because this dust is spinning at whatever number of RPMs, and it's plastering you right here, but it's also sending out an arc of sanding dust everywhere. So if I had a fan, I would probably put it right here, blowing this way, towards the door or window. If you have a dust collector, dust is very, very bad about building up static charge. All the dust collector manufacturers recommend that you ground your dust collector system. It will build up a static charge. If you get a spark, if it blows off, dust is an explosive. Dust in the right concentrations blows up grain silos all the time. Right? And those are made out of solid concrete and they just destroy them. Don't let the dust build up in your shop. Don't come look at my shop. Just don't you do it. Talk about long hair, long sleeves. You see these Turner smocks. They've got short sleeves. You can use the Velcro to get them tighter around your arms. If you're reaching across, you drop something, you lean over like this, that piece of spinning, it'll grab your sleeve. Don't ever reach across. Come around here, grab whatever you got to grab. We had another fellow that got caught up by his clothing and killed him as well. So, I'm sorry, a piece hit him in the head, right? Another guy broke his arm last year from reaching across and grabbed his sleeve and stuck it in. Jewelry, I took my watch, my ring off. Baggy clothes, if you have any, a lot of us turn in loose t-shirts, you want to tuck the t-shirt in. If you have a sensitivity to dust, you can develop one if you don't have one now. But if you do, wear long sleeves, but wear them with buttons on the cuffs, and make sure the long sleeves are not baggy. No 60s retro stuff when you're turning. And last, I would suggest that you don't turn in the nude. Don't ask me how I know. All right, some basic concepts to sanding. first and foremost is use sandpaper like somebody else is paying for it. Life is way too short to be turning with old worn out sandpaper. And we've had people in our club say you take a piece of 120 grit, you wear it down, now you got 220. No, you don't. You got 120 with just a few little pieces of grain here and there. They're going to put 120 scratches in. And they're so far apart, they don't even camouflage themselves. Buy good sandpaper. If you buy Harbor Freight sandpaper, the grain sizes, you can go from 120 to, you can probably go from 80 to 320 on a piece of 120 paper. You just don't know what you're getting. It's really cheap. It's not worth the money. I'm not saying that you need to buy, you don't need to buy the white stuff, right? And you don't need the, what's the new stuff, blue ice, that Bruce sells, necessarily. I'm not knocking Bruce's product. You don't necessarily need that. That may or may not be better for you. I use, for my sanding disc, I use primarily cling spore for the sanding disc, and everything else I get from Bruce.
In one of the newest wood turning woodworking mag, it was in wood, they did a comparison of all the, and they liked the XXX, the 3M XXX very well.
But you know, if you're doing brown and round, it's not as important to you. If you're going to do something, take the National Symposium, and you're going to compete with Cindy Drozda and all those people like that, yeah, you probably need to buy the absolute best sandpaper you can buy. Don't skip a grit. Now there's, you know, some companies make extra grits in between 120 and 220. They make a 140, a 160, 180. I go from 120 to 220 to 320 to 400 to 600, 800, 1,000. But don't skip any of those. Never go more than 100 between grits. You'll never sand the intermediate scratches out of it. Don't oversand. There's a point where you say, well, geez, I've got this one deep scratch right here. If I stay with this 320, I can get that grit out. All you're doing is you're wearing out your sandpaper, you're heating the wood, and heat's your enemy. Heat will crack the wood, guarantee it. It'll burn your hands, it'll melt the backing on your sandpaper, it'll do all kinds of ugly stuff, but it will not get that 120 scratch out if you're using 220. If you got that problem, go back to the 120, or whatever that grit was. Even out that scratch and then go back up again. It's a lot quicker that way, believe it or not. Keep your sandpaper moving at all times. Never hold your sandpaper in one spot. All you're doing is wearing concentric circles in that spot. If you're going like this, you're knocking sideways across the previous scratches. It helps mellow them out. If you've got a big piece of grit on your sandpaper, guess what you get in that one spot, all right? And you may not see it until it's too late. At least if you're going sideways, you'll see sort of a spiral scratch. It'll draw your attention. Here's how sandpaper works, just very briefly. You got a paper or cloth surface, and you got all these little pieces of grit, and they should all be the same size. If this one shears off and this one shears off, and you got this one and this one, you're still using the sandpaper, guess what you got? You got two scratches relatively this far apart instead of blending together. So when your sandpaper feels like it's dull, throw it away. Don't waste your time with it. And if you buy Harbor Freight sandpaper, you probably got one of these in there somewhere. Right? I've got some Harbor Freight. If you have a reversing lathe, you sand with whatever you need to start with. They say you should be able to start with 180 or 220. If you start at whatever you start with, sand it, spinning the normal rotation. When you change to the next grit, reverse the lathe. Let it spin the other way. It's going to do two things. One is going to help mellow out the scratches if you're using a power sander and it's making radial scratches this way. If you reverse the lathe with the next grit, it's turning this way and it's helping sand over those grooves again. So always reverse between grits if you have to.
You don't reverse the same grit though?
It's not necessary. You're going to work that one grit until it's done. Then you change the next grit, then you change the rotation of the lathe. It doesn't do any good to change in one grit of sandpaper.
Okay.
And keep the sawdust, the shavings, the dust out of here. It's going to build up heat, it's going to build up friction. The sawdust, if I leave it in here, it'll help fill in the pores, and you won't be able to sand that away because now it's compacted with sawdust. So you need a good air compressor to blow the shavings, the sawdust out. We don't have one in here, so we're going to have to pretend we're going to do that. And most important, start with the best finish you can start with off your tools. Don't say, that's close enough, I'll sand it out. First of all, you never get your skills better. Second of all, you probably never sand it out. All you're going to do is you're going to have a nice shiny bump in your piece. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about sanding the inside of deep hollow forms. What's a hollow form? Well, technically a hollow form is anything where the neck is smaller than the body. So that's definitely a hollow form, and that's considered deep, right? That's a hollow form because the neck is a little bit smaller. I wouldn't call it a deep one, but it's a hollow form. That is definitely a hollow form, and it's been sanded on the inside. And that is a hollow form, and it has been sanded on the inside and turned. And then these I showed earlier, these are both hollow forms. Again, the neck is smaller, the opening is smaller than the fat part of the body. These have also been sanded inside. And if you've ever tried to sand styrofoam insulation, it's quite a trick. They don't make a grit high enough for my taste. And the inside of this one was sanded. And I can see a little bit of light through it, but it's holding together so far. So, what we're going to focus on is the deep ones. And because my chuck at home, believe it or not, the threads won't fit here, my jaws are a little bit smaller than these, so the tendon on here is just barely grabbing. So we will see what we see. Now I cut a hole in this, so hopefully if we have enough light, you can see what's happening on the inside with the tools. I may have to sort of fake it and put my little flashlight on the inside, but we'll see. So, you guys know I'm the toy king. If it's out there, I'll probably buy it. So, you know, I've got all these toys I'm going to show you real quickly, but here's all you need. If you got some 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch dials, this is what I used for the first year and a half. I didn't have any of the fancier tools. It took me a while to catch on to that. And I still use them. I still use them all the time. There are times where this is just the only thing that will reach inside. There's two ways to do it. One is I've got a mouse pad glued around here for some softness. Take the sandpaper, wrap it around it. Now you want to put the sandpaper in your normal direction of rotation so that flap doesn't catch when it goes around. And you want to, if you're going to tape it on, tape it so you still have some sanding surface left. And then you just sort of, instead of being flat and hitting the tape, you angle it a little bit this way. And that sanding pad, that mouse pad, will give you a little bit more give to get the sandpaper on there. So I have these with different grits, and I have them marked on the handle, so it's just real easy to grab these. The other way to do it is you cut a slot straight through the end, put your sandpaper in, and then the sandpaper sort of swirls around on the ends. Right? I think you guys have probably already seen that. But these are just absolutely essential sanding tools. You can sand a little bit on the outside. If you don't have your angle grinder with the sandpaper, you just grab one of these, and you can stick it on the outside and touch up some sanding there. Sure. Well, we'll see. I mean, yeah. All right. To go deep inside, you can get a little drill extension from Home Depot and put your sanding disc in here. This won't fit through the hole, but you can see how deep I could go with that. That's going to get a little bit rocky, and I'd use my 2 inch or my 1 inch sanding disc on that, but you can use the drill extensions.